Chapter 39, Thomas Silverstein. Thomas Silverstein missed his art supplies. Alone in his isolation cell in the hothouse basement, where the lights burned 24 hours a day, Silverstein needed something to keep his mind occupied, and drawing had always been his escape. Matthews and Connor came downstairs once a week to see him, and every time they opened the door and looked at him through the 2 rows of bars, Silverstein asked them for art supplies. Each week, they refused. Finally, Silverstein decided to, as he later put it, play their stupid paperwork game. Any inmate who felt he was being treated unfairly by the Bureau could complain by filing an administrative remedy appeal, commonly called a BP-9 form. It went directly to the warden, who had 15 days to respond. If the inmate was unsatisfied with the warden's answer, he could appeal it to the warden's boss by filing a BP-10 form with the regional director. If the inmate felt the regional director's answer was inadequate, he could file yet another form, a BP-11, with the Bureau headquarters. Silverstein had never bothered filing written complaints because he suspected the process was a waste of time. But after he killed Officer Merle Klutz in Marion, the Bureau had pointed out that there was absolutely no proof that Klutz had been harassing Silverstein as he had claimed. Silverstein had never filed any formal complaint against Klutz, so therefore the Bureau could not find no logical reason for Silverstein's attack. This time, Silverstein filed a BP-9. I've been in prison 13 years and have never been denied drawing materials. I'm an artist, and this is how I occupy my endless hours in a cage and express my love and appreciation to my loved ones who have stood by me all these years. I promise not to harm, hurt, or threaten, etc. anyone on my drawings, or cause any undue concern to those who have denied me them. Matthews replied on the same day that Silverstein gave him the complaint. Your status at USP Leavenworth will remain as indicated upon your arrival, to include a denial of art material in your cell. Your activity during the riot at USP Atlanta is being investigated, and a final determination will be made upon termination of the investigation. Your request is denied. Silverstein appealed to the regional director by filing a BP-10. With just a pencil and a regular writing paper, I've stretched my imagination to the max, and it's beyond me and my drawings to have to do an investigation in Atlanta. It seems denying me this innocent enough pastime puts the cart before the mule, and that I'm being punished before a case has even been brought against me. Regional Director Larry Du Bois had 30 days to reply, but answered the complaint within a week. A review of this matter reveals that the warden's response to your request for administrative remedy BP-9 fully addressed the issues you have raised. Your regional administrative remedy appeal BP-10 is denied. Silverstein immediately sent a BP-11 to Bureau headquarters. He pointed out in the appeal that he had been given art supplies while a prisoner in Atlanta and had never gotten in any trouble there. The answer from the Bureau headquarters was brief. It said, "The warden and regional director have responded to your concern, and we affirm their responses. Your appeal is denied." Cold shit, man. Silverstein hadn't really expected that anyone in the Bureau would come to his aid, but he wanted to document the inconsistent way in which the Bureau was treating him. In Atlanta, he had been given paints, brushes, even canvas. "Why do they have to do this to me?" he asked. "They got my ass behind bars, and they're never going to let me out. Isn't that enough? Why do they have to pull this other shit?" Silverstein claimed he was being punished by guards in other ways. Letters from his friends outside prison were delivered weeks after they had been written, and some were never delivered at all. Photographs enclosed in letters from his relatives were missing when the letters were brought to his cell. One week, dessert was missing from his dinner tray. When Silverstein asked about this, the guard who slipped the tray through the bars simply grinned. Silverstein accused him of eating the desserts, and the guard denied it. But after the accusation, the desserts reappeared. Each time Silverstein felt he was being treated unfairly, he filed a written complaint. Warden Matthews rejected every one of them, as did the regional office and Bureau headquarters. Before long, Silverstein had a file folder stuffed with more than a dozen rejected complaints. Matthews insisted there was nothing unfair in how Silverstein was treated. We should be able to explain everything we do in regard to Silverstein, and I think we can and have done exactly that in our BP9s. Although Silverstein was losing his paper war in Leavenworth, he was able to obtain, through the Federal Freedom of Information Act, a copy of Bureau Investigative report confirming that guards in Marion had harassed him after Merle Clutch was murdered. In December 1983, he had been moved from Atlanta to Marion for a short period to stand trial for Clutch's death, and his claim that guards there had tormented him was later substantiated by an investigator sent to Marion by Director Carlson. According to the investigator's report, guards played a radio outside Silverstein's cell non-stop for 2 days as loudly as possible, beat on his cell door with wooden clubs, told Silverstein they were going to kill him, and sprinkled salt, pepper, and unknown foreign particles on his food. As soon as Silverstein received a copy of that report, he filed a $1.75 million lawsuit against the Bureau. Because Silverstein was being kept in total isolation, the Bureau required prison psychologist Dr. Thomas White to examine him once a month and file a report on his mental health. White normally spoke to him for only a few minutes. It is not necessary to talk to him for a long time to determine whether or not he is suffering from mental distress, White said. "What kind of sick trip are you on?" Silverstein asked the psychologist one afternoon during his monthly visit. "If I killed myself down here and people came in here to investigate, I mean normal thinking people, not the sick ones you hire to work here. If normal people saw what you were doing to me, the lights on 24 hours a day, not letting me have any visitors, never letting me go outdoors in the sunshine, and all this shit, they'd say, 'Why you leave him down there, locked up, alone so long? Why didn't you see this coming? Aren't you the shrink? Don't you know keeping a man in the cage all day with the lights on and without any other people around is really sick? What are you going to tell them, Doc? How are you going to justify this?" White left the cell without replying. Later in his office, he said he thought some of the security measures that had been in place for Silverstein were excessive, but the Bureau had been so outraged by the murder of Clutch that it was impossible for anyone to change them. In his monthly report, White wrote, "Silverstein voiced no problems or complaints of a psychological nature. He is well organized in his thought content and appears to be doing well, showing no sign of debilitating emotional distress which would warrant a change in his housing at this time. He appears to be in relatively good spirits. His hygiene and general attitude appear to reflect a satisfactory level of adjustment to his status. He is not viewed as a threat to himself at this time." A short time after Silverstein confronted White, guards noticed that he had printed the word "freedom" in big letters on the wall of a stainless steel shower stall. He had formed the letters by rubbing his fingers against the grime that had built up on the wall. The guards ordered Silverstein to clean the shower and remove the word. "Can't," he replied. "I don't have any hot water to use to clean it." The guards said later that they were genuinely shocked. For 6 months, Silverstein had been taking cold showers because no one had turned on the hot water valve into his cell. The guards claimed that this was an accident. When Silverstein was asked why he hadn't complained about not having any hot water, he said, "I just figured it was one of their little sick little trips." After 3 months of denying Silverstein drawing materials, Matthews finally told the guards to give him colored pencils and a sketch pad. A few months later, he was given paints and brushes. They arrived without explanation. Now that he could work on his art, Silverstein stopped bickering with Matthews, Connor, and White. But his silence didn't mean that he wasn't angry. "I'm supposed to walk around like everything is cool and act like it ain't personal, like Matthews is just doing his job by keeping the lights on 24 hours. And Connor doesn't really mean anything by not letting me go out into the sunshine. I'm not supposed to have hard feelings against him. Well, fuck that. It's personal." Silverstein spent most of December 1988 painting an oil portrait that showed a prisoner whose shirt had been ripped off. The prisoner was alone in the cell, bent down with his face touching the floor, as if he had just been beaten. Silverstein called it solitary confinement. "I hate these guards," he said, "and what they're doing to me. When I told this To Matthews, he was not surprised, but he strongly disagreed when I suggested that the guards also hated Silverstein. We are professionals, doing our job. None of us likes what Silverstein did, but hate is too strong. Eddie George was not nearly as diplomatic. If I could, I would execute that piece of shit, and I would not lose a second of sleep. I would kill him because he is nothing but an animal, and as far as I'm concerned, he gave up the right to live in our society by believing he had a license to kill whoever he wanted. Who gave him the right to destroy so many? Murder is forever, and a person should have to pay the consequences for murder. They shouldn't be allowed to come in here for a few years and then be released to kill again. In the lieutenant's office, David Ham, the new captain at Leavenworth, was passing around a Christmas card that someone had made as a joke on the Bureau's computer. It had a large, ornate cross on the cover, along with a stained glass church window. It was supposed to be for Silverstein, the cover said. For you, Tommy, a Christmas card. Jesus loves you. Inside the card read, everyone else thinks you're an asshole.